Well, we all knew that Marjorie Taylor Greene was definitely going to try to steal the show at the State of the Union address. She always does. She was saying she was probably going to heckle. She's heckled in the past, so we were all braced for it. And man, she showed up looking so disgraceful, wearing a red Make America Great Again hat with the 45 numbers on the side, a red coat, and then a shirt that said, "Say her name, Laken Riley." And when Joe Biden sees Marjorie Taylor Greene, the look on his face is priceless. Take a look at this clip.
Try to convince some of those moderate independent voters that Lindsey was talking about, who he brought.
I believe that's a hat that says "Make America Great Again."
A MAGA hat, and then there are buttons that we understand that some Republicans will be wearing, talking about the border, the Biden border crisis.
So Laken Riley was a 22-year-old nursing student who was out for a jog on the University of Georgia's campus, and she was killed by an illegal immigrant. Now, Marjorie Taylor Greene has absolutely latched on to this story to try to score political points and turn this young girl's death into political theater. And she's standing there in front of the President of the United States, dressed that ridiculous, and going, "Say your name, say your name." She's taunting the President of the United States. And I understand why he shouldn't ridicule her, but I would not have felt bad if he'd have gave her the old Scott Hall spooky fingers, because a person like that deserves to be mocked and ridiculed. But he's the President of the United States, so he takes her button from her. He doesn't say Laken Riley's name just yet. But Marge ain't going to let him off the hook, and later on that night, she baited him into saying Laken Riley's name. Take a look at this clip.
It's not about him. It's not about me. I'd be a winner. Not really. Laken Riley, an innocent young woman who was killed by an illegal. That's right. But how many of the thousands of people being killed by illegals? To her parents, I say, my heart goes out to you, having lost children myself. I understand. But look, if we change the dynamic at the border, people pay these smugglers $8,000 to get across the border, because they know if they get by and let into the country, it's 6 to 8 years before they have a hearing. And it's worth it taking the chance of the $8,000. But if it's only 6 weeks, the idea is it's highly unlikely that people will pay that money and come all that way, knowing that they'll be able to be kicked out quickly. Folks, I would respectfully suggest my Republican friends owe it to the American people, get this bill done.
The part about that clip that is so despicable to me is that he's trying to offer his condolences as someone who has lost a child himself, and Marjorie Taylor Greene is still heckling him. Even in that moment, she can't just shut up. He said her name. He's talking about it. He's addressing the situation, and she still has to try to get her jabs in. It's so despicable watching her use this young girl's death as political theater. And Biden says to her, "Okay, look, let's fix the border then. Get me a bill and let's fix this border so things like this are less likely to happen." But Marjorie Taylor Greene don't want that. She wants to double down. She wants to continue to push her agenda, and she's taking orders from Donald Trump. So whatever he says goes. And I'm sorry that Laken Riley was killed. It's a tragedy, and we should not forget Laken Riley in no way. But you don't see Marjorie Taylor Greene taking the stand with Kate Cox, do you? Did you see her standing with Kate Cox? Did you see her standing with all the women that has had to flee states to get reproductive care? Did you see her mention the 64,000 women that a study shown has been impregnated by rape just since Roe v. Wade was overturned? Would she ever say the names of the black people who lost their lives due to police brutality? Would she ever do any of that? No, she picked out the one case she could find where a brown guy killed a white girl, and she could continue to push the rhetoric and push the fear that, oh, look at what Biden done. This is a Biden invasion. This is all Joe Biden's fault. That's what makes it so despicable, and that's what makes it so racist. And I know a lot of people will get mad at me for saying that. Oh, it wasn't that. Yes, that's exactly what it was, because she picked that one out. And honestly, when I first saw her get up and I saw say her name, before I read Laken Riley, I really thought it was going to say Ashley Babbitt. I was like, she's going to show up and she's going to say, free the January 6th hostages. And I was really surprised that she didn't heckle harder during the part where Joe Biden was talking about January 6th being an insurrection. But Jamie Raskin was quick to point out that Marjorie Taylor Greene was actually in violation of House rules because you're not supposed to wear campaign insignia on the House floor. And of course, she fired back and said, I could do whatever I want to. I'll pay whatever fine. Take a look at this clip and look at how despicable she is trying to defend herself.
Here's what offended me. Here's what I found to be outrageous is Sergeant at Arms came up and told me that I needed to take the hat off. And I said, I'm not taking the hat off. I refused to take it off. And he said, well, it's decorum. I said, I certainly understand. You do what you need to do. I'll pay a fine. I'll do whatever, a warning, whatever there is. But I'm not taking the hat off. And he said, well, you're going to have to leave, or we're going to take you out. And I was like, you can haul me out of here. Go ahead and try it, but I'm not taking this hat off. And I told him, I'm elected by my district. This is the people's house. I will wear this hat. I will wear it here in the House floor because my district supports President Trump, supports Make America Great Again policies, and supports me wearing this hat. I'm not taking it off, and I'm not leaving.
So he threatened to remove you, and you said, fine, if you got to remove me, remove me.
Yeah.
I would have loved to have seen them to try to do that.
Me too.
How many?
You know what is the most disgusting part about Marjorie Taylor Greene to me? I can see a person being that vile. I can. I could see a person being that despicable. But what I can't understand is how a person like that gets a position of power and has a group of people who are willing to sit back and vote for her and support her. There were people watching Marjorie Taylor Greene walk into the State of the Union address dressed that way, and they were cheering her on. That's our girl right there. That's her. We're pulling for Marge. Get 'em, Marge. That's what makes me so sick whenever I see people like her. Yeah, she's bad. Yeah, she's terrible, but she has an audience. And this audience is excited and ready to vote. And they think that type of rhetoric is normal. We cannot allow that type of rhetoric to become normalized. That was a disgrace. I don't care which side of the political aisle you fall on. I don't care how you see it. At the end of the day, that was an absolute disgrace to show up like that and get in the President of the United States' face and say your name, and then later heckle him while he's trying to make a speech and turn a young girl's death into political theater. We cannot normalize this and make it okay because it's not. But Joe Biden did reply and respond to Marjorie Taylor Greene's heckle, and I really enjoyed it. Take a look at this clip.
If you're tired, you probably watched my address last night. I got my usual warm reception from Congressman Marjorie Taylor Greene. In my address, I spoke about how far we've come since we took office. I talked about how much is at stake. Folks, our freedoms really are on the ballot this November. Donald Trump and the MAGA Republicans are trying to take away our freedoms. That's not an exaggeration. Well, guess what? We will not let him. We will not let him.
Folks, President Biden is right here. We cannot let Donald Trump win, and we cannot let the MAGA movement ever have control of our government ever again, because we saw on January 6th they have no respect whatsoever for it. They only love America when they're winning, and if they ain't winning, and they've been losing a whole lot with Donald Trump, every time they lose, they go out and they run this country in the ground. They compare us to a third world country. They say that we're the worst ever, and the only way it can ever be great is if they're in charge. That's not how things work. They're out there bragging about taking away women's rights. They're bragging about doing nothing to stop gun violence. And they have no problem with coming after freedoms and democracy. They're just saying it all out loud. They're trying their damnedest to let us know who they are, and we really need to stop and listen. Now, I thought Joe Biden absolutely crushed it. I thought that was one of the best State of the Union addresses I've ever seen. I thought it was one of the best speeches I've ever seen any president give. But there was one spot in his speech that just made me get a really sick feeling in my gut, and that was when he was talking about how democracy is being threatened. And he's talking about how it's being threatened over in Europe. He said, we can't let Russia take Ukraine because Putin won't stop at Ukraine. He'll keep going. Democracy is being threatened over there. And you know, I used to always think, yeah, it's being threatened over there. But then he turned and said, it's also being threatened right here. And I realized that he was talking to the Marjorie Taylor Greenes in those red hats. That's who he was talking to. He was talking to that little scumbag Mike Johnson behind him. That's who he was talking to. And it was this really sick feeling I got of this realization that it's happening here too. It's happening right in our own backyard. We have had Donald Trump and his MAGA movement go out there and brainwash people into thinking this is okay and normalizing the behavior of Marjorie Taylor Greene and normalizing the behavior of Donald Trump and the Lauren Boeberts of the world. They've made an absolute mockery out of the flag. They call themselves patriots. They're nothing like that. They have bastardized the word patriot. They have bastardized the word American. They have bastardized the word Christian. They bastardized every bit of it. And we're going into an election, and they want to seize power, and they want to use their belief system to rule over all of us. And we can't allow that to happen. We have to stand on the side of democracy. I've said so many times, I'm not going to debate racism with people. There's no two sides to that. And there's no two sides to treason. And there's no two sides to, we want to get rid of democracy. There's not a debate to be had there. There's not. But I will say this, I don't have a problem with Republicans. If you're a Republican out there who is for democracy, I don't have any problem with you. If you're a Republican out there who sees through the MAGA bullshit and you want to see it stop as bad as we do, I don't have a problem with you. If you're an independent or a moderate who loves democracy and wants to see it stay in place, I don't care if you disagree with me about other things. I truly don't. But if you sat and saw Marjorie Taylor Greene walk through that door dressed that way, and that wasn't a deal breaker for you. I mean, if you saw her walk in and you cheered it on, then you're pretty pathetic. And if you went down there and voted for her knowing she was pathetic, that wasn't a deal breaker for you. That's not going to be a deal breaker for you. You're going to go, well, at least she ain't a Democrat, and you're going to vote for that again. Yeah, you're both just as bad.